couldn't
there's
open it either on my tablet.
oh, with the,
He just went online and found it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Call meet to order. Roll call, everybody here except Rob Stallings, he will not be able to join us tonight. Item number 2, a commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda of February 4th, 2020.
I will say whoever was in charge of getting the supper tonight did an excellent job.
It's not chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
I believe we have an open meetings violation that was not on the
It's probably on the claims list somewhere.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, nobody has anything. We'll go to item number 3, legislative update from Mr. Kurt Rogo.
All right. Well, the Capitol scene is back at it. Legislature's back in session as of yesterday. Governor gave his State of the State. If you missed it, he was very strong on health care, introducing his new health care plan. Of course, more details to follow, looking at Medicare block grants.
Will he
soon.
take the Medicaid expansion now, like almost every?
Well, that's going to be the battle. This is
Okay.
the battle between the governor's plan and the potential state question 802. And so we'll see if the legislature hammers it out. Well, but I also know that the campaign for 802 is forming. And so it's going to be a big deal. So we'll see how that discussion ends. And of course, the governor was also strong on tribes, wanting to renegotiate the compacts with the tribes, and he spent some time talking about that, and you could feel a little bit of tension in his voice. And as historically, the governor releases his executive budget just literally an hour before the State of the State, and so you can find that online. Actually, it's very well organized. It's, for some good reading. It's about an inch thick all the time, but you can pull that up. And if you'd like a link to it, I can send Gerald the link as well. Also, before I forget, I did send you, Gerald, a list of updated bills. You may get that in your mailbox today or tomorrow.
I think they've gotten it twice, because you sent it to me when we planned this weeks ago, and then you sent it to me again today, I think. And
Every time you get one, there's going to be a few more bills on there, I discover.
I realize that's what you have to do as a legislature. You constantly amend stuff.
Yeah, well, you
Looks like you're doing
constantly
something.
discover new items. This year, over 2,200 bills were filed. And so it takes a little time to get through all those, and you're always discovering new legislation when they amend it. So every time I do send you a list, there may be a new one on there. Or even some of the older bills have been changed, so you just got to look at those versions. All right. So I took this directly from the governor's budget, and basically what he's saying there is $8.3 billion was the last year's budget, or this year's budget, 3.8 billion, or excuse me, 8.3 billion. It's only just over a $9 million increase from last year. So we have a very flat budget. We're not going down, we're not going up, but it's very, very static there. And I also would mention, and I say this every time, but if you have not subscribed online to the state treasurer's report that he puts out every month, sometimes I do send those to Gerald when I catch them, but it's just a great piece of information, and you can get the newsletter sent directly to you every month. It has great economic analysis in there, what's going on in the state, sales tax revenue, rig counts, and just a lot of good information for city council and small business folks out there.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
I've got a question on this. I keep seeing these numbers right here, and they keep talking about a flat budget, and nothing's really up, nothing's really down. If it's about the same, but yet we carried over $310 million from last year in order to keep it the same,
Right.
Are we actually short 310 million from what we were last year?
Yeah, but you got to throw in the one times.
That's how we did math and algebra.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
I know. It gets complicated. It really does, because you don't know if they're taking out the one-time expenditures. Because in the executive budget, there's a couple pages dedicated to just one-time expenditures, but they know that they're not going to be spending this year. And then you wonder, well, are they factoring that into this number or not? I mean, sometimes the only people who know are the accountants that put the book together.
Inspires a lot of confidence.
But it's going to be, the worst is behind us. About, 3 years ago was terrible. Absolutely terrible. $1 billion shortfalls, $700 million shortfalls. Those days are behind us. But keeping the budget cleaned up and
They're also
static.
always ahead of us. I mean, we never. They will happen again.
It will happen again. In fact, one of the recommendations from the governor this year is to increase the savings account for the state from 15% to 30%. So he's all about trying to push money into savings for that day when it comes again. So we'll see how the legislature reacts to that. Okay, let's talk about a few bills that I've tagged. All of the different city lobbyists got together last week with OML and kind of had a meeting about different legislation and kind of tagged some of the most important bills that we thought. I think this is probably one of the more important ones because it deals with money. Sales for resale, Senate Bill 1595 by Senator Treat. Senator Treat is the pro tem of the Senate. He's the leader of the Senate, so he recognizes that this is a big deal. When you open up a business, you get a sales tax exemption card, sales for resale exemption card. And that card is good for 3 years. Well, statistically, I hate to say it, but small businesses, not all of them succeed. A lot of them fail. And your small business may stay open 6 months or a year, and you close your doors. But the owners are still walking around with the sales tax exemption card. And they're looking at it going, well, I can buy some product for myself or my friends and not have to pay sales tax. And so the tax commission is now recognizing that this is a leak. In fact, the OML pointed this out. They've been working on this for 3 years, that this is a leak. The tax commission estimates that it looks about a $60 million hole or leakage to the state and $50 million to municipalities. So they don't have a detailed list of what that means to Enid or Oklahoma City or Tulsa, but I've asked for one. We'll see if we can get one. But you might be able to look at the number and know what that figure might be. But this is the first time so what they're doing is making that card annual instead of a 3-year card. And it's all just a click of a button online these days, so they're hoping to clean that up. We'll hopefully get more information on that. And as committee sub coming, they don't have the correct language in there yet.
So if they're in business for 3 years, does it renew for the other 2, or is it just 1 year?
Just 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah. So whoever has those cards will have to renew them every year
Okay.
instead of every 3 years.
Getting an electronic database, that was real.
Taxing jurisdictions, House Bill 3553 by Boatman, and there's going to be a Senate companion bill to this as well. Requires the application of a 9-digit zip code into a specified database by sellers or certified service providers for purchases to determine the appropriate taxing authority. So there are different avenues to download the data to get your zip +4 number to be able to remit your sales tax to the appropriate jurisdictions and at the appropriate amount. OTC has theirs where you can download it, and there are other vendors out there that provide this data. The problem is it's not always correct. And this is I guess a way of making the system fair. I believe they're going to be making it where you have to download that data from the tax commission instead of other vendors that don't keep it up to date. And it just makes sure that you remit the sales tax back to the appropriate entity and the appropriate amount. And it's a fairness issue is what they're calling it. So This is something that OML is pushing for. Competitive bidding. This is a parity bill, if you will, that aligns the requirements of Public Bidding Act for municipalities and public trusts. There are discrepancies between each entity that maybe you've encountered before. And they're trying to clean it up so that the Public Bidding Act is the same numbers between both entities. And it's just a parity issue. Public safety districts, what is this, about the 5th year maybe that they've been trying to push this? You would think it's going to go at some point. Notice that I have carryover bill right here. We are in the 2nd session of the legislature. So everything that didn't make it all the way through the system last year that's still stuck in committee or on the floor of each respective house can still be brought up at the appropriate time. So on top of watching all those 2,000 bills that were filed this year, you have to watch all the carryover bills from last year that are still alive in the process. But word has it, House Bill 1992 is going to make another run. I believe it's a House bill carried by a senator, so it's stuck in the Senate right now. So, but they're going to keep on pushing this public
Kurt,
safety
what does that
district.
really do? Is that, it allows us to vote on creating it, but what's the?
I
is that
believe
so we can ask for
I
money
believe
for
the
that,
rough
or-
spot is it deals with ad valorem tax,
Oh,
and I believe that's the rub there.
okay.
And so counties, they protect the ad valorem tax, and as you well know, cities in Oklahoma do not take any ad valorem tax for anything. And other states, it's very common, but in Oklahoma, it's not.
Well, we can if we pass something special.
Or there's a judgment.
Yeah, or there's
Yeah.
a judgment. I mean, we
But
have the ability to do it, but we don't.
You don't. You stay in your lane.
Yeah.
But we don't have the ability to tax the property taxpayers for public safety,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's
creating-
what that bill would
That's
do.
what that would
Yeah,
allow.
yeah. And this has always been a Tulsa request, and Tulsa has been pushing this for a number of years, and that's basically coming up with some new revenue to go towards public safety in certain areas of Tulsa. There's a few water bills, and our one councilman who's on the water board is not here, but I'll make sure he's aware of these, and I'm sure he probably already knows about these water bills. Senator Kim David, this is a new bill from this year. It adjusts provisions related to protests made against the board decisions and allows the director to issue temporary permits. And there's going to be a companion bill there in the House as well. So right now, there are several, I guess from year to year, seem to be more protests on water permits, which is fine. I mean, that's the way the system's designed to work. Combine that with the fact that the water board meets quarterly, and in fact, last year, I think they met only 3 times. There are 4 requirements that you have to meet to get a permit. I'm sure you can list those off real quick, but I just know there's 4 requirements. And making it through the protest period is one of those. But if you meet all those requirements, why shouldn't you go ahead and get your permit? So that's what they're attempting here to do, just to kind of streamline the process. But if there is a protest, then you have to go through the board to get that permit and go through the proper procedures. So it's just a little way of cleaning up and streamlining the water permits so that you're not waiting around 6 months accidentally for a permit. And this is a carryover bill that we're still watching because it still has legs, and that's House Bill 1403, and this directs the Water Resources Board to study in-stream flow. In the world of studying in-stream flow, that's the relationship between groundwater and surface water, how streams interact with aquifers, and it can be a little bit dicey. I'm not picking the right word there, but it can create problems in the world of groundwater usage. And it could wreak havoc to cities and agriculture and everybody who uses groundwater and stream water for that matter, because they're trying to show potentially that there could be a relationship between surface water and groundwater and how certain aquifers recharge. So long story short, everybody's really keeping an eye on this bill. There's a push to rewrite this and, in a certain way and look at the in-stream flow. And I'm sure that there's, given the author of the bill, he's from southeast Oklahoma, and that's always been kind of the water argument, if you will, for the state, and not to sell water to Texas and things like that, and the Blue River and the sole source aquifers that they have here. In our area of the state, our aquifers recharge very quickly.
No, they don't.
so-
No, that's why we're spending $350 million, is our aquifer doesn't recharge very quickly.
Okay.
That's like the biggest thing in front of the city of Enid ever. is
Well,
our aquifer doesn't recharge.
I should say it this way. Our aquifers charge quicker than the Ogallala aquifer.
Yeah, just important detail for our lobbyists to be aware of.
Yeah.
Don't ever say Enid's aquifer charges very quickly.
Okay,
That's the,
okay.
the
Yeah.
single
Got it.
biggest problem in
Got
front of
it.
us
I
ever.
understand.
The history of the city.
All right.
Important detail. Small
I'll choose
one.
my words.
Yeah.
Choose my words carefully.
Thank you.
Tell us how you really feel.
And we're short of streams up there.
No, I know.
Number makes me a little panicky, David.
What is the name? What's the?
Our groundwater recharges,
Yes.
it's the aquifer that doesn't
Yeah,
recharge.
there we go. What is the term for our aquifer as opposed to the one in Panama?
The Cimarron Terrace,
Yeah, no term.
dry,
Dry.
depleting.
Well, there's also the Enid isolated terrace.
Yeah.
Or isolated.
most of our water comes from the Cimarron
But
Terrace.
we
It's-
don't use that.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
much.
I got you. I understand what you're saying, and I chose my words poorly there. Anyway, long story short, we're keeping an eye on this bill, and that is it. Just kind of watching the process as it rolls along. We do here in a couple weeks. We're going to meet with our local legislators and kind of go over a lot of those bills and hear what they have to say, and just kind of have a discussion like we do every year, and keep them in tune with our concerns. So,
Does this bill pertaining to responding to Open Records Act requests within 30 days, does that have legs?
who is it?
I scroll away from it.
It's,
Ron Sharp, SB 1154, require
Okay.
public bodies to respond to open records requests within 30 days, provide access to records within 30 days, notifying request orders.
Okay. I couldn't tell you. I mean,
Isn't the standard now, Carol, like a reasonable time or something a
Yes.
little more vague? And
Yes.
I just imagine getting an open records request that asks for 50,000
Everything.
pages. And
Right.
There's no chance we could do that in 30 days.
yeah.
you never know what the what the catalyst is for why he introduced the legislation. I know he's had some concerns about Epic Charter School, and it might be directed towards that. I don't know. But,
Kurt, could you check that
Yeah.
legislation and make sure that it, get the details on that, see how, but also, is this stuff applicable to the state legislature and what they do?
No.
If
They're not
everything-
subject to
If
open
they would be subject to the same stuff.
Open Meetings
we
Act
wouldn't-
is not applicable to state
Open Records
legislation.
Act.
The, the, and what about the Municipality Reform Act of 2020 that it's just one sentence?
Okay, that's what we call that's a great example.
A shell bill?
It's a shell bill.
Okay, so what is going to happen with that?
Who knows? So this is a practice that a lot of people hate.
Yes?
Because they tried to shut this down, but now it's kind of, I see a lot more of these. It's a shell bill. They just reserve the title of law, reserve a topic, and then later in session, they insert something else in there.
Well, obviously, we would like you to track that.
Oh, yeah, okay, we can do that. And, yeah, you gotta watch these, because they'll stick something in there on that topic. They gotta stay germane to the bill, especially on the House. This is a House bill. And you gotta watch them. That's where they call it woolly. Anything else?
I thought I saw one on there that was, it looked like it was changing to where the publications of meetings was going to be changed to where you could use electronic means on the city website.
Yeah, I think I've seen that legislation before, where they're trying to use modern technology as opposed to old school newspapers and things like that for notification.
Sound like it going anywhere?
You know, you never know until you get past committee.
Okay.
You know, and then you start taking it a little bit more serious. Every step along the way, it gets more serious. And then once it gets out of committee, then it narrows your bills you're tracking, and then you have to start monitoring if it's on the House floor, if it's relevant.
Does Senate Bill 1519 have any legs?
Topic, author.
Quinn, and it would reopen the question of whether marijuana is illegal or not for a vote of a municipality or county. So it would be like turning it into, you know, the county.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that
Just
he's going to get
chaos.
some traction there.
Well,
There's
we
a
have
ton
big
of,
signs
again, I meant to bring this
Going
up.
into
There's
North Enid and Wacomas
There's
about
a
the
lot.
It's also preempted. I mean, the state question preempted it, so it's moot.
There's a lot of medical marijuana legislation.
This one
And-
is troubling. I mean, I've
Okay.
seen the others. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, we could deal with all
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
But this would mean that, you know, what is legal in Wacomas might not be legal in
But,
Enid.
Carol,
and
but it's also clearly, I mean, there's no
It's
way that
clearly
goes anywhere, and it's
unconstitutional.
clearly,
Yeah.
the state question would preempt it.
True, but
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah, okay.
That one.
I just,
Yeah. Watch it. What will happen on the medical marijuana stuff, again, is since there's so much of it, they will pick a member of leadership to pull it all together and run one bill instead of having 20 different bills. They'll try to consolidate it into one. And that's kind of what will happen there, so.
and that's why when we look and we click on a particular statute, there are 3 versions that were enacted the same day, the last day of session, all signed by the governor and have conflicting
Yeah, that
language.
happens.
Okay. But
Yeah.
we're glad you're there.
Okay, well, just let me know. Let me know what concerns you have, tax and bills. Email me. And if they're not on the tracking list, then they should. Or if we need to alert, you know, OML and other folks as well. That's kind of, we try to operate as a team at the Capitol. All right.
Kirk, do you, when you're, how often do you visit like the elected representatives, the senators and representatives from our area? Like office visits, or is it usually on the floor?
No, it's when the issues come up. I mean, I see them daily, just walking the halls. Of course, I wasn't at the Capitol today, but, you know, first week is kind of, you know,
Right.
off to a little bit of a slow start. But, you know, I run into them daily, but if there's not an issue to talk about, there's not an issue to talk about. But occasionally, say OML, since, you know, if we're on the same issue, same page with OML, they'll call up and say, hey, can you talk to our local legislators on this bill? It happens to be on the floor tomorrow. And so, you know, those little messages like that, if they're concerned about a vote.
Okay.
If we already know where they are, then there's no concern. You don't want to antagonize them every day.
Right. Okay. All right.
But only whether there's a hot spot and concerns. And occasional roll call.
Okay.
You know, you'll pull lobbyists together to roll call a committee and kind of see where people are.
All right.
But, you know, it's just, the OML, which I appreciate, it's a team effort. Like I said, we had a big lobbyist, all the different cities that have lobbyists in a room last week, and we just had open discussions on some of these bills right here. And there's others, more to follow.
Okay.
But,
All right.
and I can come back in a month next, whenever, we'll just do a little update if you like. And
Yeah, we'll take a
Okay,
look
good.
and see what the progress is, but yeah.
All
we'll
right.
have you back fairly soon. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, item number 4. Discuss possible location of skate park and police training center.
Yes, and let me go ahead and kick that off, and then Captain Skaggs is going to go through a presentation, and then I think engineering is going to talk about the site suitability. I just want to set the stage for, we're talking about two things, and the skate park has been talked about for a while, probably meaning a couple years or more, that it probably needs to be renovated or updated. I know Jerry's talked about that when he was on the park board before and back, and so simultaneously, probably sometime last year, Chief had been talking about a simulation building with OMAG and some equipment. So really what's come together here is a need for a location near City Hall to build a police training center for what Captain Skaggs and Chief will tell you about. And I got to say that I talked to the Chief about it probably, several months ago, and I thought initially it may be a better idea to buy some properties here. A couple back here that are, not in the best of shape we might be able to buy. But we were unsuccessful doing that. And so this is a great opportunity to not only get a new skate park, but to get this new police training center that we'll tell you about. And so we did actually talk about it with Park Board about a month or so ago, I guess last month, and we were just talking about possible locations. The location we initially talked about sounded good, but I think we have a better location now that has been discussed and that we're actually looking at. So probably with that, Brian, why don't you take over and show your slideshow and.
Okay. I'm going to start off just by what the training center is going to be. Then we'll tell you what we've done and what still needs to be done so we can get this thing rolling and get to the building process. The building we're looking at is, we got a conceptual drawing, which you'll see here in just a few minutes. It'll be about 3,900 square feet. It'll be a 50-seat facility or classroom, and then the second portion of that building will be a shooting simulator, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. Facility right now will be used mainly for training our police officers. We are first in line to start hosting a police academy here in Enid. We're waiting for that approval through CLEAT. We will be the Northwest Oklahoma Training Center and Police Academy in southern Kansas. So we've got all those departments already coming to Enid. We're just looking to expand. This will be a state-of-the-art shooting simulator. One of the things we want to do is expand out in the community. We don't want this to be a police only. We get security forces. We're looking at church security, business security, gun safety for our citizens. So we're looking to expand just more into our community and not just for law enforcement. What we've done, like Gerald mentioned a while ago, we've been working on this for 3 to 4 months. We established a partnership with OMAG. They have agreed to go in with us in an amount of $80,000 towards the shooting simulator. That's why that has pushed this to be a hot topic for us. We don't want to lose those funds. The shooting simulator is about $130,000, so that offsets a lot of those costs for us. Gerald kind of stole some of my thunder. We did try to buy 2 of the houses behind the police department. We could not get a reasonable offer or them to accept a reasonable offer. That was turned down.
Now, I did ask Chief, I said, Chief, is that because you were calling them and they thought maybe they were?
Well, now wait a second. You did claim that you were the closer, and just point.
They were not.
We'll leave that. We've been working with the Parks Board. I know Corey and his group and Everett checked out 29 different locations to move the skate park to. And that, as Gerald mentioned, we chose one, but we think we've got a better alternative to that. What needs to be done, of course, moving the skate park, priority number 1. The recommended location, and we're in agreement with, is 5th Street between Broadway and Randolph. It's close to the park, it's close to Haskins, and we think it's a good area. Of course, what we need to do is decide on the size of the park and the overall cost, A&E in our training facility, of course, get your approval, and of course, start building.
Let me talk for a minute, if I can interrupt
Absolutely.
you about this site, and this site came up at my request that we look at it. This is just east of downtown. If you haven't driven by it, as you go down the hill on Broadway towards Save-A-Lot, or what used to be United East, this is kind of the low spot. This is a piece of property the city's owned for a long time that is otherwise vacant. We haven't really been able to do anything useful with it, but it's a block from Don Haskins Park with our brand new bathroom there. It's a block from Exchange Park with our bathroom there. It is 3 blocks from the brand new soccer field that's being built at Longfellow. It's a really cool opportunity to use some of the other, there we go, thank you.
There we go.
Some of the other resources we have in here. Also, for what it's worth, the neighbors are excited. The rest of that block is warehouses that Luck and Bill have.
These right here?
Yeah, and I
Right
talked to,
here's our bridge that we're rebuilding.
yes, and I talked to Dennis a little bit, just one of those, hey, before this throws out there, don't get caught by surprise. Do you have any heartburn with anything next door to you? And he was thrilled at the idea. Talked to one of the mechanics across the street, thrilled at the idea. I mean, I have property near that, and I think everybody would like to see this property used for that. It's on the trail system. Our trail runs right down Broadway. I ride my skateboard up and down Broadway because it's the smoothest road in town. It's a great, really great site for it. So just for whatever it's worth, such as it is, I think it's a perfect use of otherwise underutilized property and close to downtown.
And this is the main reason why it won't be developed. It's in the floodplain. The northern section of this is also in the floodway. And we took a quick look at this at Gerald's request. We have a sewer line that runs through here. We've got a water line on the street. None of those will really impact a design. They just become design constraints. And then, of course, this concrete piece right here, this is the ductwork, the underground ductwork that runs that stormwater from
Exchange Park, down to Government Springs.
Down to the Government Springs. So the process is pretty simple. These are just simple design constraints. You can't dig here where there's that box, but other than that, you can dig and build up, do the necessary engineering to ensure that we have less than 1 foot of rise. It's outside the floodway. It's what these types of properties were intended for.
And the other thing I'll throw out there, just for the sake of example, Stillwater has done this relatively recently. They hired an outfit, I think out of Los Angeles, but this is what they do. They build community skate parks all over the country. And they hired them to do design and I think some of the construction, and I would encourage you to look on Stillwater's website. Their skate park looks awesome. They did a really nice job, and they worked with people who could get it planned and designed, presumably with input from the local folks who would use it, and they got it executed without having, their construction folks have to get trained on skate parks. I mean, these are a little bit unique by their nature. I mean, it's not just a flat piece of concrete. So I think we want to work with somebody who has that skill set, and there are some examples. Edmund did, I think, the same thing not too long ago that we can look at in Oklahoma to get some experience.
Is it like the one at the Gathering Place in Tulsa, just south of the Gathering Place?
Not exactly, because I've been there and visited that as well, and I've only seen the pictures here, but probably in the next week or two I'll go to Stillwater and look at that a little bit closer. The thing about the Stillwater design is that it's prefab.
Okay.
More or less, and they poured a lot of concrete at the Gathering Center.
Yeah.
And it's on different tiers, and it's just, and there's 2 separate sections, and but the main thing is that it's suitable for if you're on a scooter, self-powered scooter, inline, any kind of skates, bicycles, skateboards. So it covers the whole spectrum.
Gotcha.
When we first built the one across the way here, we were concerned about just, isolating it for one purpose. And we found out that all those different modes were acceptable and the kids tolerated one another, and we've never had any trouble over there, to my knowledge.
Is there any concern about moving it, it's further away from the high school? I don't know who the primary users are of the skate park here.
Well, the primary thing that we were looking for when we were looking at locations was closeness to the junior highs, and so that puts it near Emerson and Longfellow, of course. And that's the main thing, is that these people that use skate parks, regardless of what mode they're using it under, they're typically kids that fall through the cracks of the ball sports. Baseball, softball, basketball, football.
Okay.
They're independent, and so they will go a long distance. They're kids. They're like bugs. They don't think anything about going over there. And it's the facility. And
Helps to be on the trail.
yeah, when they can get their grandparents or anybody else to drive them somewhere else to use, they do that. So it's an ideal spot. It's close to existing parks and all that other stuff. So.
And I've talked to a few of the folks who do use our skate park now. There was a group a year or so ago who actually set up a GoFundMe, who was trying to do some private fundraising to help do some renovations in our skate park. I think they didn't gain as much traction as they would have liked because it's so expensive. It's just so expensive. But I talked to some of the folks who organized that, and they like the site, they like the idea, they think it'll get well used. They had some really good suggestions for what the actual, what to go into the actual facility would.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll get all kinds of public input when we get to that point. But as far as the location and the proximity to other stuff around, I think this is a good opportunity and buildable with
Urban development.
buildable.
And it's close to an emergency room.
As the sprain risk, this is a bird flying off my skateboard. So. Not on city property, thankfully.
Do we already own that property?
Yes.
Okay. So the only cost would be construction of the skate park
Design.
design?
Yes, and just so you'll know, just a ballpark estimate from me, city manager, just my opinion, is probably going to be, Chris cautions me on this, $300,000 is probably what we're talking about, and that's what we were talking about before. I do want to say that I know Corey Buller, our Parks and Rec supervisor, and the supervisor before him had done some of the work too, and we had one of those companies that you get that specialize give us a layout and an estimate. I believe it was around $300,000, and I think it might have been to overlay the current location. I would anticipate it be something similar. I do know at the city manager conference, Blackwell has recently built one. They call it a competition skate park, whatever that means, and they did it for $250,000. So
That's what Stillwater's cost. Stillwater's was $242.
So 300 seems reasonable, in that, or less if it's possible. But we fully intend to use somebody that does this around that does this, so that we can. Ideally, we would want a turnkey solution, like a prefab deal, like you're talking about, that I still think looks really good and everybody would like.
Since I've been talking to folks and it's been in the newspaper a little bit, I've got a couple calls, and I think this was what came up at the park board too, and I just want to assure everybody, and Mitchell, please include this bit, we're not going to gut the old skate park and have some big gap until we have something new. We're going to make sure that our folks that use the skate park aren't left without a facility while the police work on theirs, which means we may need to move fast with our skate park to facilitate the police.
Ben, does the skate park over in Stillwater have a fence up around it like the one in Oklahoma City?
It doesn't look like it. I haven't been there. I've looked at a bunch of the pictures and the aerials, and it doesn't look like it has a fence around it. And I'm not sure it's one of those things we need a fence around it. It's. Okay. I think as long as it's not right up against the street where a board's going to fly out, but we've got a really pretty big, this site we're talking about big. We've got loads of room, and I know there's some design constraints and all that, but I think we've got plenty of room to do it without getting in an unsafe area.
Okay. Because east and west is going to be fine. It's that north and south that where you might potentially have an issue.
Yeah. And I'd encourage you to drive past it. And by the way, kids skateboard there now. It's one of those. It's also, we had the benefit of, hey, let's use this piece of property for the thing that it's already being used for, which is always, it's funny watching them out there. My workshop is catty corner there, up to the north and to the west a little bit, and it's kind of funny watching them out there, just because there's not a whole lot of concrete there that's flat or smooth, but they still manage. I mean, it seems like a good site for that purpose too.
So the one thing you guys will like, police department is willing to transfer $100,000 towards this project. We figured after we would have bought the 2 houses, demoed them, got the land ready, we would have probably had that much money wrapped up in that project alone. Plus we're recouping about $80,000, well, $80,000 from OMAG for the simulator. This is the simulator. But it's a company called Vertra, state-of-the-art system. Right now we're looking at a 3-screen system. You'll see a 5-screen system here in a minute. Each one of those screens are independent of the other, which is great for police training if you're going in on a 2-man unit or as a team. And you know, anytime we've got training, the more training our officers get, the safer they're going to be on the street. So we don't want to go with something that's lower cost and doesn't have the viability of the overall training. So that's why we selected this system. I got to use this system in Orlando, Florida. It comes with a belt you can put on. We're more than happy to take you through it. If you happen to get shot, the belt shocks you. I don't think we're going to buy that option, but it is an option for us. This is the 5-screen, more for team movements. You can go into 2-man as well or single man. It just enhances the training. This is something we might expand to as we look down the road, but we just feel
So
like
it's
this is going to
scalable?
be an asset. I'm sorry?
It's scalable.
It is.
Cool.
The software already has simulations for churches and schools and businesses. Might not be your actual business, but it's already fully loaded with that, so we could just bring the community in, have a class set up, and teach. The thing that scares me most is having a bunch of guys running around the church that has never been trained. So this would help with that. And we get a lot of those. We're going out and kind of talking to them, but this would give us an opportunity to actually train those security teams. So this is what the site behind us will look like. The building will basically run east to west, with the front side looking to the north. As you walk in, we'll have a lobby, 2 offices, vending machines, bathrooms. Like I said, a 50-seat classroom, and then the simulation will be in the back. It'll be totally blacked out, with the exception of maybe some LED lighting to light up and not mess up your night vision as you go into it. So, and there's a larger picture of what the building would look like. Corbin Mers has helped us out with this. I want to thank them for all they've done to get this thing off the ground. So they've done a great job. The building will go and match the police department and our garage. It'll be a great asset and great visual for the neighborhood here too. That's basically what the outside will look like. So that's our project. Happy to answer any questions that I haven't addressed so far. We're excited about it.
How much do we spend on cleat training when we send people other places?
That has varied over the years. There was one year where they stopped paying for the food. It cost us about $10,000 for that year. I think the thing we're looking at is if we get approved for the police academy for the northwest part of Oklahoma, they're only going to approve 2 of those a year. We're number 1 on the list. We're just awaiting the final approval. This is a strong point for getting a police academy here in Enid.
Okay. Would you, if other police departments around the state send their folks here for cleat training, is that a revenue stream that you might be able to take?
It would be. We're also looking at some of these courses like for business and churches, where there might be a $25 a person fee for that, which would create revenue, which would basically pay for the instructor, so there wouldn't be any extra expense out of the police department budget.
Okay.
Do concealed carry classes, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Do you have any projections what you think the revenue would be off of that every year?
I don't. I can tell you that on a weekly basis, our guys go out and talk to the churches and different businesses for a rapid response plan. I think the outpouring of that will be huge, and I think we'll have more of a problem trying to fit those classes in than going out and trying to generate the revenue from them.
I was thinking more about the cleat, the people coming in.
Well, Cleat, they're going to have hotels, food, things like that. It would save them money. So, like, if an officer from Guyman goes to Ada, they have to pay all that overtime. Of course, Cleat has its overtime. They could transfer some of those funds to send them to Enid. It's closer to them, and then they would stay here in the community for a week at a time. They'd go home on the weekends, and then that'd be a 16-week where we would generate those revenues.
Sounds great.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Any other questions? All we got to do is get moving.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
So what's our timing with the OMAG funding? What's our clock to get that 80,000?
I would say in this next fiscal year.
Okay.
I'm afraid there's other people jumping on board. We're not the only city that they've agreed to partner with, Ponca City and Sapulpa. I know one of them have already jumped ahead of us because they've already got the facility.
Yeah.
And that bumped us back, so I don't want to get bumped back much further.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to get moving on obviously I want to get moving in the skate park. Excited about that. But we just freed up like $800,000 in the budget if from those unencumbered funds last council meeting. If we need to flag some of that money so we can start the engineering, start getting somebody here who knows what they're doing on skate parks. I'd rather not wait until next fiscal year to start that.
Sure, I think what we have in the current budget already is money for design.
Right, but I think we only have like 15,000, and it's going to cost more than that.
I don't know, because initially I think Corey, the work that's been done already, I don't think cost anything.
No.
Now obviously you got to go a lot further, but
I just imagine the engineering on, because of the design constraints and because everything the engineers touch get really expensive.
if we need,
Now that the engineers are involved, it's going to cost a lot more. I mean, when you were doing it, it's fine, but they're involved, and it's
well, what we'll do is we'll get it designed.
encourage you
If we
to
need
get
more money, we'll come to you to ask for that, and then as soon as we get it designed and have a cost estimate, then we'll better know.
We'll
what
keep
to
us
ask for.
updated on the timing, and
Will do.
please don't just wait until budget season if we can move faster. We have some time.
We will try to move as fast as we can. I got to remind you that it's only really 5 months to budget season, and my goal is to
we can
get
do all
it
kinds of things in
designed,
5
so-
months. Let's
Absolutely. If we can get it designed and built,
It's a
and
little excited.
thus why I recommended buying the properties, because I thought that would go faster, but it didn't, so. Anyway,
Corey,
but we
we
get a
have a
better deal.
report on Tuesday at the park board meeting.
Yes, we are.
And is it from that company that's provided Stillwater, or are we that far yet?
Yeah, the company that provided Stillwater was Spone Ranch out of Los Angeles, California. And I've already been in contact with them, just
Awesome.
touch base with them. So I've touched the bases with them. So
Cool.
yeah, they're aware.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice we can do fun things, not just pipelines.
Okay, item number 5. Discuss.
These two ordinances were suggested by the police department. One of them is we no longer do permits for alcohol bars, but the law allows us to set the times that they can be open. Right now, the law says that has restrictions. The state law talks about when you have to stop serving people and when they have to stop consuming. But it doesn't specify that the building needs to shut down. So we've had that prior to the modernization. We had we had all sorts of ordinances that talked about what the rules were for underage band members and that sort of thing, all based on our permit. It doesn't sound like we're having problems with that, but the police have indicated that some bars are not shutting down from 2 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, they don't have to under state law, but state law says we can say shut down between 2 and 6. So if we want to go back to the way it has been for ever since I came to Enid in 1988, we can pass this ordinance and then the bars will shut down from 2 a.m. to 6. That obviously is much easier to regulate than having to go in and look and see if they're pouring drinks and whether anyone is consuming them. That's the first ordinance. So I think the police are hopeful that we would still, that we would say you should not be open from 2 a.m. to 6 p.m. But
How many bars do we have open open past 2?
we have a few people that,
Some of the smaller ones.
yeah. And I think that they're small and they're only bars.
good.
So, yeah. So there's, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is these are not the bars that are attached to a hotel or something. These are standalone ones, I believe, right? So they're really, why would you want to stay open for 6 hours if you can't serve and they can't consume? Just to look at the beverage and not touch it?
Social, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, do you, I think that the chief will suggest that he wants me to put it on the agenda for your consideration next
So I
week.
was going to ask, Chief, would that be helpful? Is that something that is a nuisance, that is a problem, that's taking up manpower going in there? And
It didn't used to be a problem, but now it's starting to be. And, you'll say nothing good happens after 2 o'clock. And so some of the bars are staying open and people are still in there drinking and, they used to be ingrained to shut down at 2 o'clock. But now that's sort of lax. You've been there.
Yeah.
And now it's some of the little smaller bars are getting a little bolder and just staying open. So I'd like to get it regulated because the people after 2 o'clock, need getting drunk.
It also limits when they can begin to be open. It's at 6:30 a.m.
6 a.m.
6 a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay, I misread it.
10.
So, excuse me?
I thought it used to be 10.
Well, what we
6
saw,
o'clock
what I
is-
saw was you said
Yeah, it says 6 o'clock.
6 a.m. was when they
Yeah.
could open and they needed to be closed by 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I really didn't see a lot of problem with that. I remember in California, you only had to be closed 1 hour during the day. It didn't matter what hour of the day it was. It could be 12 noon to 1 p.m., but you had to be closed 1 hour. And that was just so you could sweep it out.
I believe the state law says we can't shut them down before 2 a.m. Or, we can't shut them down at 1 a.m. and we can't require them to stay shut past 6 a.m. So that's why I came up with the 2 and 6, was because that's the window they indicate, and that's what our old ordinance did. The second one is part of the tag and registration reform in the state of Oklahoma. And so, this ordinance says has the different types of things that have to be in different types of vehicles. So if you're renting a car, you need to have a true copy of the rental or lease document issued for the motor vehicle in there. Most of us, what is important for us is that the registration certificate that has the little monthly sticker, the year thing that you put on your car, that piece of paper needs to stay in your vehicle so that you can give it to the police officer after you've put your sticker on the car.
Why? I've always kind of wondered, since we have a little time to kill, isn't it one of those that every time they pull me over, they pull me up the computer,
Yeah.
the registration and the plate stuff?
I used to toss the little thing because I thought the important part was getting the little year sticker and put it on there.
What does the piece of paper get you, Brian and Brian?
You get on Advanced Air Force Base.
Sorry, but when you guys, are.
The state did this, and when they,
But does it have any actual value
when
for?
the tags started going with the vehicle owner, and now the tag stays with the owner, so if you swap cars, you buy another car, or you sell your car, you keep the tag, and you drive off without a tag.
Okay.
And it's just another proof of property ownership. I don't know why the legislature did it.
Okay.
Kurt, you want to answer that?
I can answer this question.
Good answer.
This is something the state did that we're stuck with.
Okay. I like the honest answer.
I have other clients, and I actually worked on this bill for Used Motor Vehicle and Parts Commission. They're the ones who requested it. Oklahoma Used Motor Vehicle and Parts Commission, they regulate all of the used car salesmen, salvage yards, and some scrap metal dealers. Oklahoma was one of 8 states left in the United States that the tag stayed with the car. And it was becoming quite a problem with the Turnpike Authority and several different fronts. First, you would sell a car, Ben would sell his car, and I would buy it, and private transaction, but I never got the tag taken care of. Well, all of a sudden, 6 months later, the previous owner would get a bill in the mail from the Turnpike Authority. Hey, the car has gone through the Pike Pass 30 times. You owe us $60 or whatever. It was becoming a problem for previous owners, and all of the car dealers out there would get calls from Turnpike Authority. Thousands of dollars lost, really, to the Turnpike Authority. There was also an issue on the public safety side when you would pull a car over and they'd run the tag. It wasn't always the person who owned it. All of a sudden, they're running my tag on a car I just bought, and it was the previous owner for whatever reason, and who is wanted, and all of a sudden the officers are treating me different. Or it might be the reverse. You might have a hard criminal behind the wheel, and he's been floating the title, they call it floating the title, and he might have an innocent person's car, but he's a convicted criminal, wanted, behind the wheel, and the officer doesn't know who they're dealing with. So all of a sudden, they're on several different fronts, it started becoming a problem. 41 other states, the tag stays with the owner and not the car. So bottom line, when you sell your car, take the tag off. It belongs to you. You've already paid for it. The next owner has to pay the tag. And floating the title, it's getting rid of the curb stoning, selling of cars in the Walmart parking lot, if you will. They're floating the title. They bought it from you. They never put it in their name. They put it in the Walmart parking lot, make $400 on it, and sell it to me. And the state never got that transaction. And they're doing it illegally because they don't have a used car license. And so there's a lot of lost revenue. That's why they did it. Now, on the sticker that you have to put in your glove box, the receipt, I didn't do that.
Okay.
The OTC or someone else added that to the bill. So anyway, I made that, I kind of stressed
So
it out.
there is an offense called not having your registration ticket or your cab card or your temporary receipt upon a self-initiated electronic renewal of a registration. So if you don't have one of these 5 things, there is a state statute that says that you have violated the law. And the police department would like to ticket them and have it go to city court rather than county court.
So we're mirroring state law, basically.
We are mirroring state law.
The only good thing I could really see in this, if someone was to steal your sticker off of your tag and you have that verification with you, you can prove that you've paid for it.
They should have it when they run your plate. They should already know your car is registered.
They know everything about you.
Yeah.
They should.
I don't know.
Until you
State
gain
law,
the
if we're mirroring state law, that's all we gotta do. I
Okay.
mean, we gotta do it anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but I agree with you, with all the technology we have, it seems like there's a database somewhere where they could look and see, okay,
Carry this piece of paper.
01750 is the right number.
It's definitely not modernization.
Not at all.
Hey, and so Kurt,
Yeah.
the Turnpike Authority didn't even ask for it. It's the used car dealers.
Well, it was a combination of everybody. Used car dealers, Turnpike Authority was having, they were losing revenue. And so all of a sudden, everybody just decided, and it came initially from used motor vehicle.
Well, the state's getting more revenue now because I've noticed that on a transaction I've made before, if you bought a car and the tag wasn't due, you'd still go down and transfer the title and pay those fees, but you wouldn't pay the new registration until it was due. Now you're paying it. So I don't know if the state's getting more money, but they're getting it
Yeah, a little bit.
faster.
A little bit
So
more. And so
that's that.
and when you sell
no
your car and
problems
take
with
the tag off,
Yeah.
and someone else buys it, I believe they get they can actually run around without a tag for 5 days legally. If
Yes, but
show
they
that
have to have a
they have
bill of
proof
sale.
Proof of
Yeah.
bill of sale.
But if you don't have another car to put that sticker on, you've just essentially wasted the money that you registered that car for.
Yes.
And there's no way to recoup those funds. Yeah.
Yes?
A garage
You're just
sale.
being
I guess you could
overtaxed,
sell
that's
your
all it is.
Garage
Yeah,
sale.
thanks for that, by the way.
You can make
It's the sticker, sell the sticker.
Okay.
I think that's probably forbidden.
Kidding.
So it sounds like we're going to bring these back soon.
Soon,
And then
yes?
you will
Yeah.
determine whether you like it or not,
Okay.
the democratic way.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions on either of these?
I think we killed all the time we can.
Okay. Good. All right, let's see. Item number 7. We're adjourned. Meet you upstairs at 6:30.
Where the kids are skateboarding a lot.